take us straight into the first section, which is looking at how above the line plays with social. So looking at this more from a, I guess, content perspective and how we can almost supplement what is being done above the line. And more, we get clients who not only use social, who do not only have social presence and almost try and drive awareness through that, but do play within a much wider marketing mix. So first, I guess we're thinking about the categories of ATL and BTLs, above the line and below the line. So when we talk about ATL, we're talking about those mass reach, awareness driving channels. So your TV, your radio, your outdoor, anything that basically plasters your message out there to as wide of an audience as possible. Whereas below the line is then something that's much more targeted. So most of the digital activities go down for that. It's direct mail. It's essentially a direct response channel to a targeted group of people. But what's interesting about the categories is that they actually date back to 1954, I believe, when Procter & Gamble, so P&G, were the first client to categorize their ad agencies based on those two terms. So actually, they're incredibly outdated terms. And I would hope that the advertising industry and consumers have changed quite a bit since these times. But still, we keep on using those same two terms, ATL and BTL. And also what's coming into play is the fact that, your newer channels, like social still being relatively new channel, they've blurred the line even more because, as we know, it's very easy to set up a highly targeted BTL campaign on social, but you can also do mass reach awareness driving campaigns. So when talking about ATL and BTL, I wouldn't want us to use those on a daily basis. I would always want us to look at, I guess, the people over the platforms. So we should not be looking at, we want to create or you as a client, you shouldn't be looking at, I must create a TV campaign or I must create a social media campaign. But we must think about, what do our consumers want? What is the best way to reach them? So people over platforms, so not just ATL and BTL, but looking at what we actually are here to do. And because we know that advertising across different platforms just is more effective. So rather than, say, using one single platform, whether it's social, whether it's radio, whether it's outdoor, we know that once combined, they just drive much higher incremental ROI. So essentially, yes, we want to be working with clients who have several platforms in their marketing mix and several channels to put our messaging on. But that's just almost as a mindset that I want to make sure that we have, even though I'm talking about above the line being a thing and social almost supplementing that. I just want to make sure that we're not thinking the platforms only. So I wanted to go over 3 quick case studies of how social plays with above the line, so the big boys, the mass reach platforms. And I've divided them into 3 different, I guess, brand or client categories. The first one being the global giant, the cash-strapped, and the layered. So the global giant, so what defines that as a brand? So these are your big budget guys, so your global brands who most of the time have a very cross-agency mentality, so are used to working within a large group of different platforms, of different channels, and know exactly how to use all of those. An example of this that I pulled together is HSBC. So I'm sure you've seen this one. It's from their Together We Thrive campaign that was first launched in 2017, I believe, with Richard Ashcroft. And this was the TV ad that ran in 2017. And then they relaunched it last year due to the whole Brexit issue. And went with the We're Not an Island campaign, which I'm sure you've seen both on outdoor and on TV as well. So this is almost the wider awareness driving piece that they've gone with on TV, that they've then supplemented with outdoor. So I thought this was a brilliant execution of a localized, almost adding another layer to the big awareness driver. So they did your London, your Leeds, your Sheffield and Manchester across different larger cities in the UK. And how they supplemented that with social, it's almost using those different local executions and then building on those. So yes, they were running this awareness piece on the left-hand side, which is, a campaign driver. But then they also did some, much more localized things. So in the middle one was a reactive execution that they did for the Brits using the same visual. And what they understood quite well is the fact that when you plaster outdoor stuff, especially localized outdoor stuff, people do go to social to talk about it, because obviously you don't have a medium to communicate with the outdoor piece of work, but social is the most obvious way to go and talk about it. So people were retweeting, posting these outdoor ads, and HSBC were then promoting those localized pieces, geo-targeted on social as well, which is a great way to add that local touch to otherwise massive broad campaign. And HSBC, I remember working with them at We Are Social back in the day, and one of their biggest objectives is to increase positive sentiment on social, because banks are known as notoriously, people hate them for all the right reasons. But they wanted to increase the positive sentiment, and a campaign like that on a very local level is incredibly effective in driving that. So that's using social as almost the local supporter and adding that, I guess, personalized edge to it. The second brand that I looked at was called what I call the cash strapped. So much leaner budgets than those big guys. They tend to be the newcomers or your fresh thinkers. Could be a charity, essentially brands who don't have massive amounts of budgets to spend on big campaigns. And what's quite common for these guys is the fact that whereas an HSBC might be running a TV campaign for 4 months, these guys might be running it for, say, 2 weeks. So they have a short burst of above the line activity that you then need social to almost supplement. So the example I use for this, which I love, is the RNLI, the lifeboat charity, which I think it features in like a TV show now at the moment as well. But this is their campaign last year about how when you drown or when you fall into water, your immediate reaction is to fight that movement and to fight water. But actually what you should do is to float. So not do that, but to float. And it is a full campaign raising awareness of that. And this was the TV spot that went out. It only ran for a couple of weeks because of charity, smaller budgets. They probably got that as almost a free charity thing from a media buyer. But what they did on social, which I thought was brilliant, they didn't just chop up the TV ad and use different executions of that, but actually created short form films that are driving the same flow to live messaging. And they posted these across the next 2 months. So it's almost extending that campaign and driving that awareness further on social, using this almost made for social pieces. So I think it would have been an easy way out just to chop up the original TV ad and put some copy on it and make it social first. But they actually went through the effort of making it so much more effective, which is, I think it looks great. It's almost using social as the message amplifier. So if you don't have the big budgets to go for the above the line stuff, just use it as an amplifier extender. And the final one is looking at what I call layered, for the lack of a better name. So for these brands, they're usually in a very crowded market. They're trying to, there are multiple messages that they're trying to transmit, or they're trying to go for a shift in brand perception. Essentially, they are facing a really big job from a marketing angle. The example of this was the beautiful BBH campaign, Tesco Food Love Stories, which won a Cannes Lion, I believe, last year as well. So this is a campaign all about making cooking more personal, and whether you are, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are. It's all about creating those incredibly, I guess, emotional stories around cooking. And the way that they almost took that and then did the social executions was very similar. Again, they could have just chopped up those videos and posted them on social and distributed those, but they actually went through the I guess the more food horny side of things, making sure that they keep repeating all of the same elements that they actually have in the TV ad as well. So what we call these distinctive elements. So whether it's the Tesco Food Love Stories, the lockup, whether it's almost the headline for the ad, which always shows up in the first. So Mark's winning sweet potato fritters. They almost keep repeating those same things in the short form executions as they would in the TV ad. So which immediately, I guess, builds that salience and builds that recognition of, yes, I'm going to go to Tesco. It's another way to keep it, I guess, front of mind, to make sure that we're always thinking about it. So beautiful execution. They also did loads of outdoor activity as well, but they showcase the people and the personalities behind the ad. So it's just a very well thought out campaign, both that bridged both above the line and below the line. So it's almost using social as the distinction builder. So bringing those distinctive elements and then using them over and over again to make sure that we are reinforcing the messages again. But those were the three, I guess, case studies, how above the line, or some of the best in class case studies, how above the line can work with social. And I'm going to give it over to Callum, who will talk about